Kegland's new ginger beer flavour shot is a whole new way to make ginger beer, which really resolves a lot of the complaints that a lot of people have had with other ginger beer kits. Currently, other ginger beer kits on the shelf look similar to this. Basically, they're a pack which has everything already mixed together, included in the pack, so you can just chuck some yeast and sugar in there and ferment it out, and away you go. Now, that's ideal for the retailer, but in many respects, it's not ideal for the end customer because they can't really customize the kit to what they actually want to get out of it. Now, what I mean by that is, firstly, there may be too little or too much ginger. So if you're somebody who loves a really spicy ginger beer, it may not be quite enough for you, or maybe they've overshot it and you can't really remove the ginger out of there easily. The other thing is it contains gluten. These kits are generally made with malt extract. Now, the reason why they put that in there is it makes it easy to ferment out because malt extract has more nutrient value in it than what like a normal just plain cane sugar or dextrose has in it. So from that perspective, they're just trying to make the fermentation process easy, but it's not exactly great if you want to make a gluten-free ginger beer. And quite frankly, you know, a good ginger beer doesn't really need malt in it. It tastes perfectly good, well-rounded, without any malt. And if you're going to keep your, gluten-free friends happy, you may as well make it gluten-free anyway. Artificial sweetener comes with these types of off-the-shelf kits as well, and that's one of the pet hates I've also got because artificial sweetener has a bit of a nasty aftertaste, which I personally don't like. Some people don't mind it, but ultimately you can't take it out of the kit. It already comes included in there, and the only reason they put artificial sweetener in these types of kit is for those people who are bottle conditioning. Now, if you're, fermenting in a pressurizable fermenter, you can carbonate in the fermenter, in which case you wouldn't need it. The other thing is if you're kegging, you can also carbonate in the fermenter and don't need to bottle condition, but because it's already in there, you really got no choice and just have to kind of accept it as it is. So the problem with these kits is it's a one-size-fits-all model, and that doesn't really suit everyone. Well, you're probably thinking, why don't I just buy my own ginger and make my own ginger beer kit that way? Well, certainly you could do that, but there are some hurdles and complications to that process. Firstly, you've got ginger, which is an expensive root, which you have to buy from the supermarket. Now, if you're getting a really good ginger, I would highly recommend getting old ginger rather than new ginger, and that's more expensive again. The second thing is, how are you going to get everything out of that ginger? You see, you don't have access to the same tools that we do. As a larger commercial operation, we can extract all that flavor, all the gingerine and all those oleoresins out of the ginger and grab all the aroma using a number of different, steam and also solvent extraction methods to really get everything out of it. So when we have a byproduct from the ginger extraction process, we have a piece of wood which has literally no flavor left in it at all. You guys are going to have relatively poor extraction, and then a lot of the time, even the ginger which is finished at the end of the fermentation process, you throw that away and it's still got a lot of ginger left in it, so it's not exactly efficient. The other thing is, a lot of you guys who want to get really high intensive levels of ginger, you have to use so much ginger in the fermenter, especially taking into account that you're not getting everything out of it, that you end up filling a reasonable proportion of your fermenter up with actual ginger solids. So when you actually try to drain the liquid off your fermenter, you end up with huge amount of losses and a lot of essentially the ginger beer left over in the fermenter or soaked up in the ginger root itself. Now, the last thing is it's not properly emulsified. So if you've got a ginger flavor and ginger oils and ginger aroma, they're different compounds and they're not really easily soluble in water. So as much as you try to get them into your ginger beer, then naturally some of them will float to the top and some of them will sink to the bottom. Some of them will also attach to those yeast cells and actually drop with the flocculation process and drop out and disappear, and they won't end up in your final ginger beer. The other problem is you may find that some ginger beers, after they've sat in the bottle or keg for a while, those solids drop out and then you get an inconsistent product. And essentially, emulsification is what's going to fix that. So emulsification is when we use something like a high shear mixer to make sure that all of those flavors are attached to the water molecules and they stay suspended in the ginger beer. So you've got a homogeneous, consistent product at the end. So emulsification is not something you can easily do at home unless you've got your own quite expensive high shear mixer. So once again, it's something that's easier if we just do that for you and put it in a handy little sachet, which is exactly what we've done with the Impressence Flavour ginger beer shot. The Impressence solution is quite different on the other hand, as we give you 3 different sachets which allow you to make the perfect ginger beer and customize it to your particular requirements. Now the first sachet is the ginger beer shot. Now this is the Impressence flavor shot which you can add into the ginger beer to give you that intense ginger flavor. Now we've already emulsified that for you, so it's ready to use and throw in. I should say there's also no need for this ginger beer flavor shot to be added during the fermentation process. As we were saying before, when the yeast flocculates, it simply takes some of that ginger flavor away from you. So if you are going to ferment your own product, you're better off adding the ginger flavor shot right at the end after the fermentation process has finished. Now, because the ginger flavor shot is a separate sachet, you can add as many or as few sachets as you like. So we've got a typical type of recipe on our website, which would add 4 of these flavor shot sachets to one 20-litre batch or 5-gallon batch of ginger beer you're trying to make, for instance. So the next decision you can make is whether you're going to use firm stop or you're going to use some type of artificial sweetener pack. Now our firm stop product is essentially for people who want to either carbonate inside their fermenter if you've got a pressure-rated fermenter, or you want to carbonate inside a keg, because if you're doing one of those 2 things, you can use a CO2 cylinder or even the CO2 from the fermentation process to carbonate the product. Then you can chuck sugar into your fermenter or keg to back sweeten it, which is what you want to get. But of course, if you back sweeten it with sugar, you need something to stop the yeast from eating up that sugar and, basically over-carbonating the beer and then becoming dry again. So the firm stop is the product for that job. Now, if you don't have that option and you want a bottle condition, let's say you don't have a pressurizable fermenter, you've just got a normal conventional fermenter and you're putting it in bottle and you need to basically carbonate the product, well, you're probably going to be stuck with using something like the sugar drops inside your bottles, and then you're going to have to use an artificial sweetener in there to make sure it's not so dry it's undrinkable. See, all ginger beer needs some type of residual sweetness in there, and if you're bottle conditioning, really an artificial sweetener is one of the few options you've got to get the job done. Now I should say our particular artificial sweetener, we go to quite a lot of effort to make a blend of various different artificial sweeteners to give the best effect. If you get some of them, they use aspartame or Ace K, and some of them use sucralose, and some of them, if you only use one particular artificial sweetener, you're never going to get a very good, substitute for real sugar. So really, from our experience, the best is to use a combination of artificial sweeteners to give you the best result, which is why we've come up with the Flavour Shots Artificial Sweetener Blend 1. So what does an Impressence ginger beer recipe look like? Well, essentially it starts with the ginger flavor shots. Of course, you're going to need that, otherwise you're going to have no ginger flavor. Now, the first fork in the road you're going to get to is, do I ferment myself to make my own alcohol and carbonate the product, or do I simply just buy an alcohol off the shelf like vodka? Or Kegland actually sells a new Vinca wine base, which essentially it's a lot like vodka, which you can add into the ginger beer flavor shots to essentially just make up the ginger beer straight away in our ready to keg range. So if you're fermenting it yourself, you've got a couple different decisions to make. So firstly, do you want to just use sugar, for instance, or do you want to use a combination of sugar and malt? Once again, it comes down to whether you want to do a gluten-free ginger beer or not. And thirdly, the choice of yeast, in which we've got lots on the shelf. So the fermenting yourself, if you're following that path, you can then go down the avenue of if you're kegging, in which case I would recommend using just plain old cane sugar and firm stop. However, if you're bottling, as I was saying before, if you want to prevent those bottle bombs, then you've got to use priming sugar and then use our Impressence sweetener pack blend 1. If, on the other hand, you go down to using your own alcohol, then what I would recommend is going down the keg path, adding the alcohol into a keg, carbonating in the keg, adding sugar in the keg, and this process will only take you 5 minutes. In fact, what I'm going to do is show you this process now to show you how easy it can be to make a ginger beer literally in 5 minutes with the Impressence range of products. So this kit can obviously be made in several different ways. As I was saying, you can either be bottling and then do bottle conditioning if you want to do that, or you could basically ferment your own sugar wash and put it into a keg. But I'm going to do a really super easy way, and I'm just going to use this Vinca wine base. So this is already an alcoholic product. Essentially, this is 22% alcohol and it's 5 liters. So once I mix this into a 20-liter keg or 19-liter keg, I end up with about 5 to 6% ABV ginger beer at the end. Now, of course, this ginger beer kit, you could make it totally non-alcoholic as well if you really wanted to. Just, don't put in this alcoholic wine base. Essentially pour in these products here and then carbonate in the keg, and you've got a nice product for the kids. Anyway, what you do is you just take the lid off the keg like that. I will also use this opportunity to re-emphasize you must add the firm stop last. So you've got this product here, the wine base, you've got the sugar, and they've also got the ginger beer sachet or the Impressence ginger flavor sachet. These products you can add in any order, but you must add the firm stop last, mainly because if you get the firm stop in contact with the acidity inside the ginger beer sachet, these will react with each other. The firm stop will precipitate out and then it won't actually do its job. So it's really important. I'm just going to put that off to the side to prevent the temptation of putting that in too early. Get the Vinca wine base, literally just take off this seal here and then whack it into the keg like this, fill it up like that. Then what I'm going to do is pour in these 4 ginger Impressence flavor shots here like this. So just pour all these into the top of the keg like that. Now, of course, if you wanted it more or less gingery, you could add more or less flavor shots. I mean, one of the beautiful things about this particular recipe is these flavor shots here really are not very oxygen sensitive at all. So it's not like beer where I would say once you carbonate the product and get the product in the keg and stuff like that, do not open the lid. This particular product, cold side oxidation is really not a big deal. So what you could do is basically pour in a few of these packs and then see if it's gingery enough, and then you could add more and take off the lid and, you know, retweak it, or even add more sugar for that matter. So it makes it really, really easy to adjust when you don't have to worry about oxygen. Now I've got the sugar to add. I've got about 680 grams of sugar, which I'm going to add in here. Really, as much as I try to, you know, reduce the amount of sugar I'm taking in my diet these days, like if you don't add any sugar into ginger beer, honestly, it just doesn't taste right. You really need a bit of sugar to enhance that ginger flavor. So look, you can adjust the amount if you really wanted to, but I find with the medium Vinca base, so that's got medium sweetness level, coupled with 680 grams of additional sugar for a 20-litre batch works out to be pretty much, you know, what I'm after. However, I will say on the website, if you wanted to use an artificial sweetener, you know, you could do that to limit the amount of sugar. Sometimes a good way to do it is use some artificial sweetener and some, you know, real sugar, because I think that's the best bang for buck. I think artificial sweeteners, when you use 100% artificial sweetener, obviously that's got the lowest calorific value, but, you know, from a taste perspective, it's very noticeable. But if you use, you know, a bit of each, you actually end up with a really, really good compromise in the flavor, because I think you can get something which is barely noticeable with respect to its artificial sweetener content, but, you know, it obviously has less calories than using all sugar. Now, with the firm stop, obviously, this is the last step. I'm going to put this in. I've already added water as well. So I've got the water filled up to this part of the keg now. So basically, that's something you can do just with a, you know, garden hose or something like that. And then I'm going to pour in this firm stop here like that. So I've got one shot and the second firm stop sachet here. Now, look, if I was going to consume this entire keg pretty quickly, then I wouldn't bother with the firm stop. Let's say I had a big party coming up and I was going to drink the whole keg the next couple of days or week, let's say. Probably, you know, you could get away with it, especially if you're going to keep the keg really cold. But look, I want to store this keg for quite a while, so, you know, I'm going to make sure I put that firm stop in there. And that is it. How easy is that? Literally, it hasn't even been 5 minutes and I've finished making ginger beer. So this kit is one which you are going to feel like you're cheating. So now I've got all the ingredients in the keg. The last step is to carbonate this bad boy. So I've got the regulator pretty much cranked right up to about 50, 60 PSI in that range. I've also got this keg of cold ingredients. It's always important to make sure you cool the contents of the keg before you try to carbonate it, because, you know, carbon dioxide doesn't dissolve into solution very easily into warm liquid. It's a bit like using a soda stream, I guess. If you ever got those 1 litre bottles, you always put them in the fridge first. Same thing, right? So basically, I've got this cranked up. I'm going to clip this up onto the ball lock post of the keg like this. And to speed the process up even more, I'm going to rock the keg back and forth. So look, I'm just doing this on the table, but look, if you're at home, what I'd do is I would put this on the floor, put your foot on top of the keg like that and roll the keg back and forth with your foot. And look, at that type of pressure with a cold liquid in here, you'll essentially carbonate all the contents of the keg within about 60 seconds. So another little tip is, if you didn't have time to cool the entire keg down, you can also just take the lid off and put ice inside the keg to cool liquid down that way. Obviously, that means you don't fill water all the way to the brim. You just leave enough space for however much ice you want to throw in there. So that's a quick way to cool liquid, just so you can carbonate it really fast. Now, if you're not in a hurry, the other way to carbonate it, of course, is to just leave it inside your fridge for about a week, connect it up to your CO2 regulator, and have it set at around about 12 PSI with the keg sitting in the fridge at, you know, pretty close to 0 degrees, or let's say, you know, 2 degrees or something like that. Should be pretty well carbonated by that stage as well. Now, that is an absolutely delicious ginger beer, and it is by far the fastest brew day I've had in my lifetime. So if you guys want to try this kit, it's on our website at the moment. The other thing you can do is subscribe to this channel, of course. If you haven't already subscribed, hit subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Make sure to hit that bell icon, because that's going to get you get notified when new videos land. The other thing you can do is join our Facebook Homebrew community group, where there's guys just like yourself sharing tips and tricks on how to use this gear and get the most out of it. I will also like to put a shout out to all of our retailers, which are starting to take on the Impressence flavor shots. We've got lots of spirit essences now, ginger flavor shots, so you can make your own ginger beer. We've got a really awesome pub squash one as well, which we just released. Sorry, it's already sold out actually, but we've got more coming in stock very soon. But the Impressence flavor shot range and Impressence essences are increasing in numbers. So we've got a map now on our website showing all the retailers that are taking on all the Impressence products. So make sure to check that out as well. All right, that's it, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.